Hey everybody, Chris with Killer Arcade Games here, back with another What's Inside video. If you're not sure what a What's Inside video is, it is where I go through an arcade cabinet and show you what is inside of it, what makes this thing work. So without further ado, let's get right to it. I'm going to take you around the back of the cabinet first. Actually, you know what? Let's show you up front here first. So you've got a steering wheel that has force feedback. You've got light up road buttons. All of them work, thankfully. Radio button. We got a start button that's blinking because we are in free play mode. 4 shifter there, does work, thankfully. And we've got 2 pedals down there. And there's also a subwoofer hidden underneath here. In a lot of racing cabinets, there is one that is in the seat, but not in this cabinet. All right, so let's take a look around the back so you can really see what's going on in here. So let's go around the back of the cabinet and let's see what we got in here. This one's a little different than any other cabinet I've shown so far, simply because I had to change out the big CRT monitor for an LCD TV. Now, this is not an ideal fix in my opinion, but unfortunately it's what had to be done. And the reason it had to be done is this original tube, not only was it just not coming on at all, this is the yoke on the back of the monitor, and this is what keeps the image straight and stabilized and all that. This is now being held on by duct tape and a little bit of hot glue. I ended up having to give up on this one. It's not really worth fixing at this point. It's, you know, a little beyond repair, but I am gonna save it just in case I need it. Coming back over here, let's talk more about this monitor. Now, this is hooked up with HDMI, and to do that, I used a converter board here. These are not the greatest in the world. In fact, I'm not in love with any of these, but they're cheap Chinese junk, but at least they do the job. They take the arcade signal right there, convert it to an HDMI, and then it goes to the TV. And to power the board and the monitor, instead of splicing up the power cables, I just took the old monitor power cable, installed an outlet in the cabinet, and plugged the stuff into it. It's actually a pretty good idea. Now, these wires are not gonna, handle huge amounts of power, but for an LCD monitor and an adapter, it's really not that much use. I guess the only thing that could go wrong is in transport. If one of these wiggled out, and somebody who bought it might be a little confused. And this is looking at the back of the dash. This is actually the shifter right there. Somebody went through the trouble to mark it and say which switch is which, 1, 2, 3, 4. It does all work. It is a simple thing where this little peg right there touches micro switches and tells the game which position it's in. It's really nothing fancy. And right here is the back of the start button. The lighting is all installed inside of the button. It's going to be really difficult to see, but you can kind of see it lighting up from the back. And underneath this metal shield is the steering motor. This is what creates all the force feedback. It is actually really strong, and if you don't have it turned down, it's probably going to yank the wheel out of your hand. It's shocking how strong these actually are. And right here is the back of the radio button, which has no light. Looks like it should have a light, but it does not. And it did not come with one, surprisingly enough. And that's the back of the view buttons, of course. Okay, sorry, I had to close the garage door because my neighbors guys came to mow the yard and they're very noisy. But let's move down here and look at the board. It's probably a good idea I close the garage because you can actually see the lights are on, they're flashing. The game is running currently. Let's start with this little board here. I gotta be honest with you, I didn't do the research to find out exactly what this board does. By looking at it, I'm assuming it has something to do with networking, like linking the cabinets together. It may also have something to do with the steering, because if we follow this ribbon cable down, it connects to the steering motor board with this giant heat sink right here. This is what I assume is telling the steering motor to do. So, pretty interesting. Giant capacitors on this thing too, by the way. A couple fuses in there. These are kind of common in these racing cabinets. I'm pretty sure almost all Midway racing cabinets have one of these in here, in different variations, of course. Next to it is the original hard drive, and no, it doesn't work. It's no longer connected. It is now plugged in with a, oh, can I get down? I don't know if I can go low enough. It's now got a flash kit on there, which is great because it will probably never fail, or if it does fail, something else probably would have failed before it anyway. Got a fan blowing up here onto these large heat sinks. And let's back up really quick to take a look at the main PCB. This is the main brain of California Speed. It's pretty cool to see all the lights blinking and whatnot. Not a whole lot of ROMs on here, just a couple. I believe those are actually just RAM down there. And there's really no need, I guess, when you've got a hard drive down there. So I guess everything comes off the drive for the most part. There are a couple ROMs right there. This is a JAMA-based game, and I will tell you, while working on this cabinet, I accidentally leaned over this and nudged it a little bit. And when I was booting up the game after that, it looked like the game had just completely crapped out and wasn't working. Apparently I nudged this out of position just a tad, and it made me think everything was all over with, but it's Happy to say it's working. I reseated it and got it in position and it works fine. Off to the right here is, I believe this is for the subwoofer, because these should be for the two speakers, you know, the amplifier for the speakers, and I believe this guy is for the subwoofer, which is down under the dash, not in the seat like a lot of Midway games. And again, here's that fan. The fan is blowing up, cooling off these heat sinks. I assume those are the main processors, because if we go over here, this one has no fan, and it's actually quite warm. It's probably about 110. I'm just estimating. You can see the hard drive loading right there, by the way, or the flash drive, I should say. Anyway, underneath the fan is the main power supply. This just powers, you know what? I'm not 100% sure, actually. I think this just powers mainly the game board and components, and then everything else can be powered separately, but here you go. Pretty standard power supply for arcades. Has a little outlet on the side here, and that's where you adjust the voltage. You want to have that voltage perfectly right. If not, your game is going to act funny or not work at all. So all of that stuff back there works together to ensure that this all works up front. Right now, just this light is flashing, but all these lights do work except for radio, which has no light. It looks like it's supposed to have a light, has no light. But all this stuff works together, of course, to make this game run and be a pretty cool California speed game. It's a lot of fun to actually play it. It's very accessible to families too, I will say. So I'm not going to take off the marquee and show you, but you can imagine, right? There are one speaker here, there's a speaker here, so two speakers and a marquee light up there, which when I did all the work on this cabinet, and if you want to see all the work I did to this cabinet, I'm going to leave a link to the video in the description. But this is the LED replacement, because the original was burnt out. I don't even think the fixture worked anymore, so I just snipped the wires off. The LED looks a lot better and will not burn this brand new print I put on it. So now what I thought I'd do is turn off the lights, and I will show you guys the boot up process. It's very quick on this cabinet, but still I'll set up the tripod and show you what the game does when it's starting up. There you have it, a very quick boot up on this cabinet. It takes probably a total of 10 seconds, maybe. There are no tones that play. I'm just telling everybody this just in case you have one of these cabinets and you're troubleshooting it. There's no startup tones that I've ever heard on this cabinet, and it just kind of boots up and goes right into the attract mode. Well, that's all for this video of what's inside. If you want to know what's inside more arcade cabinets, I have a playlist that I will link to in the description. With that playlist, you can see what's inside of a Hydro Thunder, a Killer Instinct cabinet, Target Terror, San Francisco Rush, and hopefully more coming soon. It's a little messy right now, but there's my new KI2 cabinet that's just sitting here. I don't know that I'll do one about what's inside of this cabinet, just because there's not much inside of it. You'd think that big cabinet would have something in it, but apparently it doesn't. So if just watch the Killer Instinct 1 video and you'll get the idea of what's inside of here. They're almost identical. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you are new to the channel for more arcade content. And leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of California Speed. I'll see you guys on the next video.